important debate. We want to thank the Kennebec Journal for sponsoring this event. We want to also thank UMA's own Assistant Professor of Social Sciences, James Cook, for moderating the debate tonight. And most especially, we want to thank David Rollins and William Dowling, who will be sharing their views with us tonight. As UMA celebrates its 50th anniversary this coming year, we value the many partnerships we have established over our first half-century. But none are more important than our partnership with the city of Augusta. As members of this community, we look forward to hearing from the candidates on some very critical issues that affect us all. Now your moderator, James Cook.
Thank you very much. I'd like to second the remarks made by Mr. Grant. This is the 50th year of the University of Maine at Augusta, and really, if you look back at our history as a city and a university, this university could not have begun without actions taken by the city council and mayor of the time. So as we think about the 50 years that came before us, we also stand poised to look at the 50 years to come and to think about our relationship together. So it's quite fitting that we're having a debate here tonight. I would like to thank the university for making this possible. I would also like to thank Professor Lorraine Lake Corral, who is going to be collecting questions. So for those of you who are just coming in, there are sheets of paper at the back at which you may write down questions and either bring them to Professor Lake Corral or raise your hand if you have a question. Also, please silence your cell phones, but if you have a smartphone, don't necessarily turn it off, because thanks to the Kennebec Journal, who is a co-sponsor of this event, we have a hashtag on Twitter, Augusta Mayor. And if you send a tweet to that hashtag, if you are on the live feed watching this debate and would like to participate, send a question via Twitter to Augusta Mayor, and we'll take a look. I may ask that question. We will have some audience questions, some prepared questions. The first individual to make an introductory statement of 2 minutes will be Dave Rollins.
Thank you, James, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out and watching this discussion here tonight, and thank you to the folks at home watching on their computers. I also want to thank the KJ for sponsoring and hosting this, and I want to thank my opponent for his service and his contribution to our community and to our government in the past. I'm Councilor Dave Rollins, and I've served on the Augusta Council for 8 years, and I have served as mayor during that time. I have served on many committees. I have chaired many committees, and many of those chairmanships handled very difficult issues. I'm not afraid to tackle the big issues. I believe this is a new era. I believe we need a new mayor, and I believe we need new leadership. I want to be that leader. I want to be your new mayor. What qualities do I have that would make me a good leader? First and foremost, I am approachable. I am out there. I'm engaged in the community. You see me. You know you can talk to me. You know I care about your issues and your concerns, and I will take action upon them. Also, I am very passionate and committed to the wellness of this community's future. At the same time, I'm extremely considerate of other points of view. I believe that when we conduct our business in the council chambers, it should be done with respect of all points of view, and people should come into the council chambers feeling comfortable and welcomed and respected. And I will insist on doing our business in a dignified manner. When it comes to challenges, I hope to be proactive and will be proactive. I want to be a problem solver, and I want to work to bring people together to solve those problems. And I will always strive, as I always have my entire life, to exceed expectations. When it comes to opportunities, I'll be forward-thinking on development, yet I'll be mindful of quality of life and compatibility issues that concern so many of us. I believe with that filter, I'll be supportive of the right issues. My wife, Jan Rollins, my daughter, Katie Rollins, and myself encourage you to vote on November 4th. And if you elect me your mayor, you'll have somebody that believes in you and will lead us to a bright, vibrant future. I'm Councilor Dave Rollins. Please vote for me.
Thank you very much. Your opening statement, Bill Dowling.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Bill Dowling, and I also would like to thank the Kennebec Journal and the University of Maine for holding this forum so that a few folks, plus those out on the internet, can get to know us. I think I'm probably known by quite a lot of folks in Augusta, having served as your previous mayor. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Augusta, a fourth generation to be exact. We have had a history, a family history, of public service. My grandfather was an alderman for the city. My father was on the city council. My sister was on the city council and later on served in the House of Representatives. And I'm a four-term city councilor and a termed-out mayor. I have an interest in the city and the city's well-being. That's why I'm running again. I've always had the feeling that if you didn't like everything that was going on, you're better off to participate and try and change it than to complain about it. Well, I think that there's some issues at the city level that can easily be transitioned into positive measures for the citizens and for the voters. I think I'm that person that can make that happen. I think I have a lot of experience. I have both government experience. I have 26 years in state government. I was a deputy secretary of state. When I left and when I retired, I went to work for a development company, which is another layer of experience. I have 15 years in the development business and real estate business. I know how to get things done. I know that the city has a lot of vacant property that they've acquired through taxes, like the Statler site. Everybody's talked about the Statler site. I think I can help move that Statler site on to something bigger and better. Why? Because I know how to market and I know how to make the contacts where money is to make these happen. I deal with investors on a weekly basis and try to talk them in to whether or not they should locate in this region because we feel that we have the best population for employment and that we have the best location for health and safety. And based on that, I think I would be a good candidate to come back and serve the citizens again of Augusta. While I was mayor, I was able to achieve some extraordinary things along with the council. We were able to secure funding for a third bridge, secure funding for a third high school. We were able to locate the YMCA at the Capitol Park. It was city-owned property, and we leveraged and made that happen. Those are some of the things that I was part of and were able to help accomplish. So therefore, I think I have the knowledge and the experience, and based on that, please vote on November 4th, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll begin the question period of the debate. And again, if you have any questions, please write them down. There's sheets of paper at the back. Hand them in to Professor Lake Corral. And I'd ask the candidates to remember that there's a reminder of time in the front. If we go 15 seconds past time, I will say gently time. The first question will go first to Bill Dowling, but we'll go to both candidates. In his March 2014 presentation of his proposed budget, City Manager Bill Briggio noted that, quote, city government is not going to go out of business in the foreseeable future, end quote, but also declared that, quote, I am quite frustrated with my inability to provide you with a financial plan for the coming year that holds the line on property taxes while maintaining the level of municipal services I believe you and our residents support. A number of factors contribute to this dilemma. Now, in May 2014, a budget was unanimously passed by the City Council that covered basic needs, but only with $202,000 in additional borrowing. What changes in Augusta's budget would you propose to meet the challenges that Manager Briggio identified?
Well, first of all, I'll start with taxes in the city of Augusta. I think the city of Augusta has been too eager to go to the taxpayer to make up revenues. I think the city has to start looking at other methods to raise money and revenue for the community. One of them is development. If we got 30 or 40 or 50 acre site along the Kennebec River, if you convert that into non-taxable property, into tax-paying property, you're going to offset property taxes. It's as simple as that. You also have circumstances where I don't think The state is paying their fair share. And I think somebody has to have the ability to go up on the third floor and demonstrate the differences between what the legislature is doing and what municipalities are going through. I think that there are issues that could be looked at. I think this, what we have in Augusta is an aging population. That means more and more people are becoming fixed income people. You can't expect these people to continually pay property taxes at an aggressive rate. Property taxes are a regressive business. It's not progressive. It's not based on your ability to pay. It's based on the value of your property. You could have had property in your family for generations, but if you can no longer pay the taxes on it, something's got to give. I think we have to consider that when you consider the municipal budgets and what the impact is going to be on the taxpayer. What have you done to help offset it? We could go, I think that there are ways to go to the legislature. We have to work with a delegation out of Augusta to try and sponsor legislation. For instance, we have a lot of tax-exempt property in the city of Augusta, probably more so than any other city because we're the capital city and we're a service center community. But those tax-exempt properties are getting all kinds of city services and they're not paying anything for it. The snowplow drops a blade, the police show up, the ambulance shows up. Whatever happens in a nonprofit organization, they get the same services that everybody out there, you and me and everybody else does who pay tax in the city, yet they pay no taxes.
Time.
I think we ought to go to the legislature and the taxation committee and say, hey, enough's enough. It's time that they pay their fair share. I think religious organizations should be totally exempt, but I think that the people that are running with a tax-exempt status are born with a lucky spoon in their mouth. It's as simple as that. A lot of them are making tons of money. And for instance, do you think Maine General sees patients for nothing? I don't think so. So I'm asking or advocating that they allow, particularly service center communities, a fee in lieu of taxes
Time.
for those services. My time's up.
Yes, and I'm going to try to be gentle, but I will use non-gentle methods if I need to.
No clubs, please.
I don't believe in that kind of violence, no. But Mr. Rollins, let's give you 3 minutes to even that out.
Thank you very much, James. Well, first of all, taxation is a very complicated issue and a very complicated problem here for us in the municipality under the current tax revenue sharing policies of the state of Maine. Let's not make any mistake about it. We are being pressured and put upon to balance the state budget, and the rating of the revenue sharing fund is at some points insurmountable. And we have done a great job here at managing the budgets for the last 8 years. And only in the last couple of years has it got to a point where we've had to increase taxes more than we would have liked to have. But it gets to a point where you make a decision about, are we going to impact property values and set up deteriorating infrastructure, or are we going to try to do what we can to maintain our vitality? I think it's very important that we follow the path that Mr. Dowling has described by expanding the tax base. I have sent out a vision and a plan, both in an advertisement to the KJ and I mailed it to all you folks, about the very subject of development and taking advantage of private investment to offset the burden put on the taxpayers, and that we must keep taxes affordable for all citizens. I'm very mindful of the situation and demographics in the city of Augusta and elderly people on fixed incomes. And I will fight with the city councilors to do the very best we can to hold the line. But understand that we are under the gun from two phases of state policy. One, revenue sharing, where we're not getting the allotted money, and I mean hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars not sent to the city of Augusta. And secondly, in the state tax policy in general, where 45% of our revenues collected in the state come from property taxes. We think this is a out of balance gathering of revenue necessary to run our state and our communities, but putting the burden on our people in Augusta as property holders to carry a more than fair share of the load. And that has to be addressed. I've already begun to talk to Roger Cates and Matt Pouliot, and they have told me they're both going to aggressively pursue the revenue sharing issue. And I'm willing to go over to the state and fight for the city of Augusta with other mayors to address the bigger tax policy issue that faces us here in Augusta and all cities in Maine. It is getting to the point where it's a chronic problem, and we have to address it to ensure the vitality of our communities. Taxes are not going to go away. Let me explain a little bit of a metaphor, if I can, to you, what it's like to be in a municipality. I relate it to a condo. In a condo association, you have your property, and I have my property. We all have individual property. And then we have common property, grounds, recreations, roads, and we pay fees to maintain that property. If we do not maintain that property, that condominium complex is going to devalue. And we have a live, real-life example going on right now in Kennebec County. We have made tough tax decisions, and in the future, in the current last 3 years in Waterville, Maine, since Mayor LePage left office and have gone to the Blaine House, property values from all the cuts made up in Waterville have dropped 8%. The median price 3 years ago dropped 8%. The difficult decisions we've made here at Augusta, at the same time, very similar economics, our median prices are up 3%.
Time.
Now, I do not support lowering taxes at the expense of lowering your property values. I'll save you hundreds and cost you thousands.
Thank you very much. I would like to follow up on this budget issue by getting specific with an audience question from Bob Dodge, who asks, should the school portion of the 2015-2016 city school budget be increased, decreased, or kept about the same? And I want to add an addendum to that question. When you answer that, do you mean in inflation-adjusted terms, or do you mean in nominal dollars? So, Dave Rollins first.
Could you repeat the front part of that question again,
Sure.
please?
Should the school portion of the 2015-2016 city school budget that is devoted to the school be increased, decreased, or kept about the same? And do you mean that is the case in nominal dollars or inflation-adjusted dollars?
Well, that's a really difficult question to answer because that doesn't parallel the budget process. I can say that I feel that it would be great if we decrease the budget, but at the same time, I am mindful of the need to support the youth of Augusta, Maine, support education, and I have no idea what the state contribution to education is going to be. And as a member of the city council and mayor of the city, it's the responsibility of the school department to compile a budget and bring it forward. That being said, I'm always supportive of a budget staying the same or reducing if we can. But we can't do that at the cost of property. And we have to be very diligent in our review process. And I can assure you that 8 budgets and 8 sessions that I went through with Roger Cates and Bill Stokes and my colleagues on the city council, we have done our diligence and we have done the scrutiny we need to, and we've made sure that every single penny we spent was necessary. We've made difficult cuts. We've made difficult cuts to personnel, to programs, and we'll continue to do that where we have to. But you can also be assured that we're going to protect cuts that will cause great harm to, not only to students, but to property values in the city of Augusta.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'd like to pass that on to Bill Dowling then.
I'm not totally familiar with what the items were that were combined that created the entire school budget, but at first glance and off the top of my head, I would say that the school budget is adequate at this time, right where it is. I don't think that the taxpayers in the community can withstand much more pain. I don't think it's a question of need. It's a question of whether or not you can afford need. If somebody lives in a household with 7 kids and everybody wants a bowl of cereal in the morning, but there's only 5, somebody's going to go without. And I think that we have to look at city dollars just like that. We have to use them as wise as we can, get as much out of each dollar as we can, but make sure all the services that we're currently providing stay intact so that nobody goes without. There's no question in my mind, I know that we are our brother's keeper. And I plan to continue that philosophy, but there's a limit to how far you can go. There's a wish list and there's a need list. Let's deal with the need list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to refer to, in that line, the second page of some social science data from the American Community Survey, part of the census. We have, at the top, median household income in Augusta compared to other cities, Maine, and the United States. The percent receiving food stamp benefits in Augusta compared to other cities in Maine, the state of Maine, and the United States. In that context, we are a service center city, and we are, in that sense, to use your phrase, our brother's keeper. As a service center city, Augusta provides help to many people in need, from the poor to those who suffer from mental illness. Is there anything city government can or should do to increase the help that's provided? Is there a way to get more money from the state to help reduce the cost of these services? And first to Bill Dowling on that.
I don't think that the city can do a whole lot more than it's doing. It's operating pretty much under state guidelines when it comes to dissemination of, welfare benefits. I think that if the glass is half full or half empty, depends on what the legislature does at any one specific time. For instance, the legislature had an opportunity, or the state did, to allow Medicare to be given to those individuals who weren't totally covered by health insurance. I know that Roger Cates is my next door neighbor, and he and I discussed it, and he said, the federal government is doing 100% reimbursement. I said, if they're doing 100% reimbursement, why not take advantage of it? There's about a whole lot of other things when I worked in state government. If we had an opportunity to get federal grants or federal money, if I didn't take it for the city of Augusta, someplace in Georgia would. So if you have an opportunity to take advantage of a program that's federally funded across the country, and it's not going to cost each taxpayer in this community a dime, and you're going to increase and improve the quality of the health of your community, why not take advantage of it? State government declined to do it. I don't agree with that decision, but I wasn't the decision maker at that time. Thank you.
To follow up, since we have a few seconds, what about the city? Is there something that the city can do if the state cannot?
The city has to do what it can, but in the same token, they're operating under the guidelines that are established by the state to offer welfare recipients, because the state is getting a reimbursement based on what it spends for welfare recipients. I think that the city has an obligation to make sure that everybody at least has a warm place to sleep at night and has an adequate nutritional diet so that they live a healthy life. But sometimes, I hate to say it, sometimes people that live that type of lifestyle don't live as healthy as maybe you or I might, or think they should live. So they may need a little more guidance, and I don't know where that guidance is going to come from, because we don't have welfare workers at the city level calling on welfare recipients to making sure the revenues and the services they receive are being maximized to what they're intended for.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And Dave Rollins?
Yes, sir. Thank you. First of all, in terms of what the city can do more, the city has a very aggressive general assistance program that's very well scrutinized. And if everyone in this room had a chance to review how we handle our general assistance, you'd be very proud of the city of Augusta. We are very much in tune with those that need, and we're very much in tune with those that try to take advantage of the system. And we need to continue that. This is a big picture issue. It's a long-term solution, and it involves investing in education, and it involves investing in opportunities. What we don't have here to help these people are job opportunities. And what we need to do is have the private sector and private investment develop some of this property that we have in Augusta and get jobs in here. That's the best way to solve this problem. I do agree with Mr. Dowling that the state not taking advantage of that program was wrong, and many people could have been helped. But they can be helped better by given opportunities. Opportunities afforded through education. We cannot cut and continue to think that we're going to create a generation that's going to be productive. And we've got to be able to invest in developers that will create life-sustaining jobs. And the concentration and effort into economic development under my leadership, will be very much in tune with trying to develop jobs in this community. At the same time, we will not let anybody that has a need go without having services. And I can assure you that through general assistance and whatever state programs, our community services being run by Leaf Dowling are very in tune to these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that line, but transitioning a bit to a very particular locality, a question first to Dave Rollins and then to Bill Dowling. Earlier this year, the City Council voted to increase police patrols in the downtown area in response to complaints by business owners and visitors that vagrants and others were keeping people from shopping there and walking on the sidewalk. Do you think that program was appropriate? Do you think it's been effective? And what other things should the city do to help revitalize its downtown?
Thank you very much. Yes, I do think it was appropriate. Yes, I think it has been effective. I've talked to merchants along Water Street. It's better. It's not solved. We have a problem. We have a problem in Augusta with crime. We have a problem with reoccurring offenders. And it's something that I'm going to support the city police department and continue to increase patrols of downtown Augusta. I'm going to work with the police department and the sheriff's department to work on drug distribution in this town. We can no longer, as city leaders, sit silent on the issue of drug distribution. It is too chronic and it's too much of a big problem, and it needs to be in the public dialogue. More importantly, recently I've joined my wife, Jan, who has created a committee to address reoccurring crime in the city, a program called Restorative Justice, in which we have brought the chief of police, the sheriff of Kennebec County, we've brought community leaders from the city of Augusta, from the school department, we have the district attorney on board, and we've begun preliminary discussions about restorative justice. It is a system and it is a plan to take first-time offenders, preferably at a young age, put them into a program, put them into a confrontation with their victim so that they understand the cause and effect of what they did. Restorative justice, you'll hear more about this in the future. It is in several communities in Maine, and it showed great promise. It's in several communities across the United States, and the state is offering training for people here to get involved. We had our second meeting yesterday, and the stakeholders, including the Boys and Girls Club, are optimistic that we want to get into this program, start smaller than large at first, and find out how we can apply it to the youth of this town so we do not have these very unfortunate reoccurring situations. And I will wholeheartedly put all my force and energy behind this so that we can bring to fruition the energy we need to address these problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rollins. Mr. Dowling.
Yes, I too support the efforts of Augusta Police Department and additional patrols in the downtown area. I think that there's a certain amount of rehabilitation that goes with juveniles that stops the incorrigibles from becoming more flagrant. But in the same token, at some point in time, when you have the same offenders that continually repeat and repeat and repeat, it's time to go to court and go to court and go to court and have them pay the price. When a merchant is losing money because somebody is being disruptive or doing the wrong thing that's causing that merchant to lose business, it's the same as stealing. It's theft of services from that business by that individual. Somebody has to be held accountable. And I think that programs that help juveniles and help people rehabilitate are fine. But at some point in time, some people don't learn and don't learn well unless they pay a price. I spent a lot of years of my life in law enforcement, and I can guarantee you there's a lot of repeat offenders out there. You got a lot of repeat drunk drivers out there. You got a lot of repeat habitual offenders out there. Why do they continually repeat and habitually offend? It's because somebody has to finally do something about it. And when they go to the point where they become an habitual offender, when they go back to court, they're going to pay a mighty big price. And I think that we have to look at crime that way. You get to a certain point in time where you've reoffended and reoffended and reoffended, somebody's got to pay the penalty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dowling. Along the same lines, somebody's got to pay the penalty. It's a good way to put it. And another phrase that I heard, more patrols are appropriate, both candidates believed. On the other hand, looking at the budget for law enforcement in Augusta, that that part of the budget has not kept pace with inflation over recent years. Looking at the first page of the social science in context, if you don't have one, please look to a friend. We can see that according to the FBI's uniform crime reports, Augusta is in red. The United States is in a dashed line. In 2000, the city of Augusta, Maine had a lower violent crime rate than the United States as a whole. But by 2012, Augusta had a higher violent crime rate than the nation as a whole. For the past 12 years, Augusta has had consistently a higher property crime rate, the lower graph, than the nation as a whole. The Augusta Police Department reported that Augusta had higher rates of violent and property crime than any of the other 9 biggest cities in Maine. So how should the mayor and city council respond to these trends? Bill Dowling and then Dave Rollins.
Well, first of all, I think the violent crimes and the associated criminal activity that goes with it are primarily resolve around drugs in this community. Let's face the fact. Drugs are a demon. It's a demon for those who don't use them and a demon for those who do use them. And I think there again, you got to start paying the penalty. When a police officer arrests somebody for drug violations, you have to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law and continually do it until such times that person becomes an habitual offender. And the courts get tired of looking at them, and maybe, just maybe, they'll spend some serious time. A lot of times, people have to go to jail to be rehabilitated because they can't have access to drugs. That's rehab. That's hardcore rehab. But in the same token, if you ask the Augusta Police Department, the state police, or even the Kennebec SO, they'll tell you that drugs is one of their biggest problems. The problem is all over the state. The problem is in Portland, it's in Lewiston, it's in Biddeford, it's everywhere. And it's in even some of these smaller communities. In my business, I'm a developer. I've had business, I got a call center in one of our buildings. That call center was once located in Calais, Maine. They had to move that facility out of Calais, Maine, because they couldn't get any help that they could keep sober long enough to go to work. Now, that's pretty sad that they have a drug problem that bad in Calais, Maine. But that's the prevalence of drugs, and they're in our system, and they're going to be difficult to go. As Ronald Reagan said, just say no. Let's have a fight on drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowling. Dave Rollins.
Yes, thank you. First of all, James, I'd like to add that, as you point out, that maybe the public safety budget hasn't kept pace with inflation. I don't think any part of our budget and tax increases have kept pace with inflation. If you track our tax increases over the last 10 years, we have been under the cost of living adjustment. So it's across the board that we are not funding to the inflation rate of the cost of doing business. As far as crime goes in Augusta, we are aware of it, and we are going to address it, and we've addressed it this year. We've added a full-time police officer into the schools. We've stepped up patrols on Water Street, and we'll continue to address the budget as it comes forward each year with recommendations from the public safety sector. And we are very sensitive to the needs of the community when it comes to that. It's very simple to say incarcerate them, punish them, put them in jail. But working personally with Randy Liberty, who runs the Kennebec County Jail, it's very costly to warehouse people. It's very costly to put people on the shelf and sit there and watch them come back into society and reoccur and become part of a violent cycle that puts them back in there. I understand it seems like we're punishing them and rehabilitating them, and I can understand how people have that perception. But to invest time and effort into breaking that cycle at a young age is as important as it is to ensure that there's consequences to behaviors. So it's something that's a very larger social issue than the mayor of Augusta, but philosophically, I believe we have to do both, and that we have to work to reach those kids when they're young so they don't get into a cycle of that. We have to work to get jobs here so people can have a good quality of living, and then when we have people that commit crimes and they're not correctable, They will have to do time. I'm not for opening the jails and let everybody out, but it's a very deep and complicated problem. We're not happy about these statistics, but we will address them.
Thank you very much, Dave. And so I would like to move to the audience and a question from, pardon me if I get your name wrong, sir, Commander Patrick Eisenhart, who asks not a necessarily philosophical question, but a bread and butter question. Augusta is the only city or town in Kennebec County, he says, that taxes American Legion and VFW posts. If elected, would you rescind property taxes on veterans' posts? Dave Rollins and then Bill Dowling.
Well, Pat, you and I have talked about this already, and it's certainly an issue we will bring forward and put on the table. I believe the Legion has nonprofit status. Am I correct? And it seems to me that there's some inconsistency there with other communities around the state, and I think that needs to be brought to the attention of the City Council and put on the table for discussion. As the process goes, it is something that the City Council would vote on and something that they would vote yea and nay on, but I would certainly support that discussion coming forward.
Thank you. Bill Dowling?
You know, I'm a veteran myself, and I appreciate the Legion and what they do, and I appreciate the veterans that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. But in the same token, if you have a strong membership, you should be able to support your club and community. I would have no problem with them paying a fee in lieu of taxes for services that they need or use from the city. If they have a function going on at the American Legion and somebody falls ill, Augusta Rescue is going to be called. Or if they have somebody acting disorderly, then Augusta Police are going to be called. If you have 2 feet of snow, Public Works is going to show up. I'm saying they don't necessarily have to pay for schools and those other activities non-related to the American Legion, but I think that everybody should have to pay a fair share of services rendered by this community. And God bless the veterans. I understand where you're coming from, but how many people and how many businesses? If it were just the veterans that asked for it, I'd stand in line to say, let's give it to them. It isn't. We have businesses, we have hospitals, we have Maine Municipal, we have countless nonprofit organizations. And because the city of Augusta is the capital city, all those people require legislative support, and they move their offices to the city of Augusta, and, well, long and behold, guess what? They pay no taxes, but they bring in revenue. They take money out of the taxpayers' coffers to fund their operation to their independent agencies. I watched it happen. Some of them I leased property to. They're wonderful people, wonderful programs. But there again, how many things can the city give away? And I think that the city has to think loud and clear before they allow freebies. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill Dowling. Focusing again on particularities, I'd like to ask a question first to Bill Dowling, then to Dave Rollins. A group has formed to attempt to revive the Colonial Theater. Is it worth saving? Why or why not? Bill Dowling.
For historical reasons and from childhood memories, I'd say absolutely, let's restore it. A very good friend of mine's on that committee. I think he's here tonight, Larry Fleury. He believes very much in the Colonial Theater, and he believes very much in preserving downtown. I believe in preserving downtown. You know, my father was a merchant downtown for 48 years. I worked downtown. I was a stock boy in a store. I have the greatest feelings for the downtown Augusta and hope that it comes back and reaches its full potential and vitality. How much taxpayer money should be used for that? That would have to be thoroughly discussed. I don't think the city of Augusta's got a lot of surplus money to give away. And if it does, I think that giveaway should be going back to the taxpayers. So I applaud the Colonial Theater and its committee on what they're doing, and I think the city can show support in other ways than writing them a check. But there's also the grant process. Maybe the city can assist in writing historic grants to help the Colonial Theater folks get some extra revenue to revitalize the theater. I think it's going to happen. I think the people involved of such impeccable reputations and such good work ethics, I think the Colonial Theater is going to be revitalized, and it's going to be another good addition to downtown Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Rollins?
Yes, thank you. We've had the Colonial Theater project reviewed thoroughly in front of the City Council, and it's a monumental project, one that could not be undertaken by the City of Augusta, but one where we're now seeing energy from the private sector under the direction of Dick Parkhurst and Larry and others to find a methodology and a contributory group to come together to maybe small steps at first that may lead to larger steps and create a critical mass where this actually may get done. There's a lot of positive energy. It would be incredible to get that done. It would be such a driver of culture and excitement to a revitalizing area of our city. We've got a great thing going along downtown in Water Street. We've got the new Haymarket Park, and we've got the quality living spaces being developed along the second and third floors. And certainly the Colonial Theater bringing events to that area, helping feed restaurants, helping to bring life to that area would be marvelous. It's a very, very costly project. The people involved with it know that, but they're very encouraged and they're very positive that they want to do this. In terms of protecting our history, nothing could be more important than to do that. I have worked for 8 years on the council to protect our history. I believe in protecting our history, and I believe in historical preservation adds value to a community and to a neighborhood. So I'm 100% in favor. I know we're going to have to do it on a volunteer basis, but I believe Augusta, Maine is the poster child for volunteerism in the United States. I think that some show like 48 Hours ought to do a series on the city of Augusta and what we do at the Kara Fields and what we're doing at the downtown with the Colonial Theater, and how people time and time again pitch in to improve the quality of life here. I couldn't be prouder of the citizens that come together time and time again. And the Colonial Theater, when that opens, we're all going to be pretty happy and we're going to have quite a celebration. So I say here, here, go Larry, go.
So I have heard very encouraging words from both candidates. I also received a question in the middle of your answers. And there's a somewhat pointed question. Noting of Dave Rollins, you said, well, this couldn't be undertaken by the city government. It would have to be a private group, a volunteer basis. Bill Dowling, anything the city government would do, that would have to be discussed, and perhaps some kind of grant money, another private source. This question, asked by an anonymous audience member, is, what is one thing that the city government could do to move that process along, that the city government could do? So to Dave Rollins and then Bill Dowling.
Well, certainly we can assist in any type of administrative grant writing that the folks find a source to come forward. I support that idea. In terms of funding source, this is what I'm referring to as the city of Augusta just doesn't have any extra money kicking around to invest in such a monumental project. I think that the city can be a communicator. The city could facilitate meetings. The city could promote outside look and investment and maybe people from away to build the awareness of the project. But I just don't think, and I haven't seen any colleagues on the council feel that we have a heck of a lot of money that's really going to move the needle, nor have any requests come forward to do that. So in terms of any administrative support, any communication support that we can add, I certainly think that the people on the council will support that.
Thank you very much, Dave Rollins. Bill Dowling, your thoughts?
I think it's like we can be their cheerleader. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. When I say the city council would have to discuss what it could or couldn't do, It would depend on how great the need was and what the need is. Just to arbitrarily say, well, I think the city of Augusta should spend some money on the Colonial Theater without having the need demonstrated and justified, you can't give them any money because there's no surplus money to give away. You know, if you look at that Colonial Theater was of an era when it was a cookie cutter theater, and they had them all over the country. And they're very well protected in most communities because of their historical significance. Now, I'll bet $1, and I might bet $1.50, that there is grant money out there that can be accessed to help revitalize those projects because of the historic significance, not just here in Augusta, Maine, because of the national significance of that particular theater, of those particular theaters. And other than saying that, I think if the city could help them do it, they can come to the city and ask them for any assistance that they might be able to give them for research and development, but for dollars and cents, I'd have to say I'd be very reluctant to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dowling. So we've been talking about very particular issues in particular parts of Augusta. Let's take a look back out to the larger picture. According to U.S. Census data, the population of the United States grew by 2.39% between April 2010 and July 2013. During the same period, the state of Maine was unchanged, literally growing at 0.004%. And the population of the city of Augusta during the same period, shrank by 1.61%. Is this trend a problem? Is this trend a boon? Or neither? And how may city government respond? Thank you. Mr. Dowling, please.
I don't think this is a trend that's just happening in the city of Augusta. I think it's a trend statewide. One of the problems that we have in the city, in the state, is that we're not attracting enough of our young people to want to stay in the state of Maine once they go off to college and get an education. I think what we have to do is try to come up with collaboration with the state or anybody else that's willing to sit down at the table and talk. How do we create a feeder system of these young, energetic people who want to get involved in the workforce and have a career in Maine? I know that at the federal level, and at some state levels, if you're in medical school and you get your doctorate in medicine, that if you practice medicine in certain rural parts of the state of Maine, then your medical bills for college will be forgiven, or your student loans will be forgiven. I think that if you could get programs that would entice people, school teachers, to teach in areas that are deprived of finances and circumstances that are more difficult, things like that, or police officers that work on rural patrol in these outside areas. I think the agencies should be allowed to apply for grants at certain levels to help offset those costs. I really think that we're not doing enough to help retain our young people in jobs in the state, and I don't know if the answer can be solved at the municipal level. Thank you.
Dave Rollins.
Yes, sir. Thank you, James. What time period did you quote as being a decline in the population?
This was April 2010 to July 2013.
Okay. That's a much more current trend than I quote in my profession. I look at the census from 2000 and 2010. It showed over a 2% increase in Augusta. So apparently there might be some current trend downward that I'm not aware of. But to the bigger picture of population in Maine and population in Augusta, I think that some of this solution is found in education and found in job opportunities and found in quality of life, and that we need to invest in a curriculum in the future that is geared for the future. The kids that are leaving this state are leaving because the jobs aren't here to support A, their interests, or B, their degrees, or C, their abilities. and the people that are left here are undereducated to have companies come in here and invest a significant amount of money in the kind of jobs and the kind of workforce they need. We've heard this several times. I promote a very strong technology curriculum begin statewide. Technology knows no boundary. We have issues of our location in the United States being up here in the upper right-hand corner. And when it comes to over-the-road transportation and distribution of goods, we here located in Maine have a disadvantage. But when it comes to technology, we have no disadvantage. There's no reason why we can't dedicate ourselves to a future of highly educated technological workers and citizens, and where good jobs can come here. Because we have a quality of life. We have a ecosystem and natural resources that are admirable. And people come from all over the country because they want to spend time here. And I believe if they had quality jobs, they'd want to live here. The other thing that's very interesting about population shifts in Maine is one of the things that we sit here and do constantly is hammer on the tax rate. And we constantly minimize it, keep it down, we can't afford it. And when I look at population shifts, people are moving to the cities with higher tax rates. Now, I don't know what that means, and I don't know what the answer is. But when you look at the cities in southern Maine with higher tax rates, they're very growth-orientated towns. There's got to be a correlation between jobs and taxes paid and the ability to generate income for sure, but it's kind of counterintuitive sometimes. So
Time?
I'm not saying I promote the answer to this is higher taxes. I'm just putting that out there anecdotally that it's interesting.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Rollins. If I were running a quiz show, I would give both candidates extra points for correct answers and finding nuance. First of all, to Dave Rollins, absolutely. From 2000 to 2010, the city of Augusta grew. From 2010 to 2013, that trend reversed. And also, Bill Dowling identified a youth drain as an important issue, and that is also evident in the census findings. So thank you both for bringing light as well as heat to this subject. I'd like to pose a question that brings this a little bit closer to home. Later this year, the University of Maine at Augusta will celebrate its 50th birthday. And on November 16, 1964, almost 50 years ago, the mayor and the city council of Augusta helped bring UMA into existence very particularly. They granted the university space to use rent-free in Coney High School. Years later, UMA found its own home, thanks in part to authority exercised by the mayor and the city council. As UMA and the city of Augusta enter their next 50 years together, as business partners, as partners in building the human capital and the human potential of the city of Augusta, how can we together help the city grow? How can we together help UMA grow? Bill Dowling first, and then Dave Rollins.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the University of Maine Augusta is really a jewel to have. A lot of people get to go to higher education who would not otherwise have had the opportunity. They can work a full-time job and come here in the evening and eventually earn a degree. You know, I think the whole circumstances back to what you just indicated, originated, is it was a collaborative effort that put the University of Maine at this location. It was a collaborative effort between the city of Augusta, the University of Maine, the state of Maine, particularly Senator Bennett Cates at the time. All those things all put together make something happen. If you want to sit in a vacuum and think that just because you have a title of being mayor or the title of being on a city council or whatever, that you have got all the answers, you don't. You can't do it all alone. You have to have help, and you have to be willing to reach out and ask for that help. And that's why I said early on, you have to have a working relationship with your legislative delegation in the Maine legislature to try and get things done and get the collaboration going that you need. And what you do in Augusta can have a ripple effect across the state. If a program works well in Augusta, why won't it work well in Bangor or Portland or Biddeford? It might, and it should be considered. And if you try to do this on your own because you think you can, you really can't do it. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dowling. Mr. Rollins?
Yeah, I think that the partnership is growing, and it has shown some very beneficial results with the location of the UMA down in Water Street and the architectural school down there. Out of that school has come the design for the Market Square, which students all entered renditions in a contest, and we've come up with a beautiful park down on Main Street in Augusta. And I think finding ways to connect to the city, perhaps offering courses in the school. I know that in the new Business Academy in the VOTEC, there are colleges that are using that facility to offer college credits to students. And there's an incredible amount of college courses and credits earned at the VOTEC and the Business Academy through Thomas College. And I think UMA could be a part of that in working collaboratively with our school system. I think that the students of UMA, that's a commuter school, to get more involved with the Life Along Water Street and socialization down there can help create a presence, your music program, and finding opportunities for that to further come into the city and to entertain us and to shed light on the level of abilities coming out of your music department here. This is a real gem of a cultural asset to the city of Augusta, and I don't know that enough of us come out here to events. And maybe a co-promotion of some cultural things that occur here on campus to bring us out to campus more. But it all begins with communication. The building of a partnership begins with communication, and certainly getting people that are involved and engaged in that will help that partnership and that synergy. I agree with Mr. Dowling that we don't all do this alone. We are not Fidel Castro, and we're not going to run the city. We have a whole process of dealing with the city council and working collaboratively with everybody. But we certainly are the face of and the spirit of. And the spirit is not an individual, but a collective energy. And I think the spirit of getting together with UMA is a very worthwhile thing to pursue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rollins. And as Mr. Rollins was first to give his opening remarks, he'll be first to give his closing remarks. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. We've talked a lot tonight about the role of public policy and the city of Augusta in the development of our town. I think it's time that we turn our focus away from the public sector, as we have just come to an end of a cycle where we've invested heavily in a new high school, and we're about to invest heavily into a new library, and we do have a new bridge, and we do have a new YMCA. And it's time now to get to the private sector and develop sites in areas around the city to create high quality of life. I've put forward a vision, and that vision begins with steps that we can take immediately to create the path to a vibrant, robust economy. Steps like developing the riverfront. We must develop the riverfront, the Statler Tissue Site, a Veterans Memorial Paddle Park down on the East Side River. Would be grand to bring recreational activity to the Kennebec and honor our veterans. And I'm committed to working on that as soon as the election is over. And the dormant Arsenal project, which has just started to rumble a little bit again, we've got to encourage that developer to find a way to get something going there. It's essential. We must continue our development of the downtown and get the theater and the living spaces on Water Street further developed. And we need to develop and continue to develop our economic corridor out on Civic Center Drive and hopefully bring that over to Riggs Brooks and see what happens with the Capitol Street, Sewell Street state property that's for sale. That's going to be a huge development opportunity. At the same time, we need to be aware of quality of life and enhancing and protecting our neighborhoods, enhancing and protecting our schools. Without that, without looking to an eye to the right kind of development, we're going to do great harm to this city. And finally, we're blessed with a great greenway, with a great ecological system of rivers and brooks and streams and lakes in close proximity. and to connect those trails will add vibrancy and a robust economy to the city of Augusta, a sustainable city of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rollins. Mr. Dowling, your final statement.
Sounds like you're looking for a developer.
I'd be glad for you to come in and talk to me.
That's what I do for a living.
I would correct that and say developers.
Right. You'd have to bid it out to keep everybody honest, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. I'm going to be short. I don't need the full 2 minutes. When you vote on November 4th, obviously, I'd like to have you consider me as your vote of choice. But I want you to consider the fact, and probably the most serious facts, is who do you think has the skills, experience, and the ability to move the city forward? I think I'm that person, and regardless of whether I am or not, please get out and vote on November 4th. We have very few rights left in this world today, and your voting right is one of the most important rights that you can exercise to tell government what you feel is needed and necessary and what's important to you. And sometimes we all got to get hit on the head with a frying pan, and every once in a while the electorate does that to those running for public office. I think Congress may get shook up a little bit midterm elections, but we'll find out. Anyhow, thank you for having us, and have a good night. Thanks. There you go, Bob.
So our formal debate has ended. I would like to thank both Mr. Rollins and Mr. Dowling for having the energy, the wherewithal, the commitment, and the gumption to place themselves forward. That's something that's very hard to do, even if you may have been doing it for some time. So thank you both very much for putting yourself forward in good faith. And I also want to thank the members of the audience, because it is an uncommon thing in this age for people to put themselves forward, to listen to others, and to engage civically. I see a little bit of that happening tonight. I know a little bit of it's happening at the Civic Center, and some of you may want to be heading over there. But I want to thank you as well for coming out tonight. Thank you so much.
I'm surprised anybody showed up here.